The snake was already dead when it tried to bite. That is the part Florida officials had to warn people about. Because apparently, hunting giant pythons in a swamp at midnight was not spicy enough. During the Florida Python Challenge, hunters are told not to cut the head off a Burmese python and walk away like the movie is over. A severed head can still clamp down, hard, with curved teeth built for holding prey that desperately wants to leave. Picture that. The body is gone, the eyes look glassy, and the mouth still works. In the Everglades, even the ending has a sequel. But why is Florida running a state-sponsored snake hunt in the first place? And how did a pet store giant become a swamp king? Before sunrise, the parking lots near South Florida's canals start filling with pickup trucks, coolers, snake hooks, headlamps, and people who have willingly signed up to grab a muscular ambush predator with their hands. The Florida Python Challenge is not a backyard dare. It is backed by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and the South Florida Water Management District. With cash prizes and official rules, competitors fan out across designated public lands, searching levees, roadsides, and marsh edges where a python might be warming itself after dark. The biggest snakes can stretch 15, 16, even 18 feet. That is not a snake. That is a garden hose with a gym membership. And somewhere beneath the sawgrass, the reason for the hunt is sliding quietly through the water. The invader's origin story starts indoors, under heat lamps. Burmese pythons were imported and sold as exotic pets for decades, especially when they were small enough to coil around someone's wrist and look like a living bracelet. Then they grew, and kept growing, until dinner became rabbits, chickens, and the emotional stability of everyone in the house. Some were released by overwhelmed owners. Some may have escaped from breeding facilities. Hurricane Andrew in 1992 has often been mentioned in the broader story of escaped exotic animals, though scientists say the python takeover was not caused by one single dramatic storm. It was slower than that, which is worse. A few animals became a hidden population, and the Everglades offered them something no living room could. The Everglades is basically a 5-star resort for an animal that likes heat, water, cover, and surprise attacks. It is not a simple swamp. It is a slow, shallow river of grass, mangrove tunnels, tree islands, canals, levees, and endless hiding places. A python can vanish in 6 inches of water and look like a shadow with scales. It can wait for days. It does not need to chase dinner. Dinner eventually strolls by, because dinner has terrible scheduling. South Florida rarely gets cold enough to stop them for long, and when temperatures do drop, pythons seek warmer refuges. The landscape protects them, the climate feeds them, the silence hides them, and the first humans trying to count them ran into a horrible math problem. No one knows exactly how many Burmese pythons are in the Everglades. That sentence is doing a lot of work. Estimates have ranged into the tens of thousands, and the reason is simple. The snakes are unbelievably hard to see. Researchers can radio track one python and still lose sight of it from a few feet away. Females can lay huge clutches, sometimes dozens of eggs at once, and a big female is not just one snake. She is a future neighborhood. Since 2000, more than 22,000 pythons have been removed from Florida, according to state wildlife messaging. But removal is only the visible tip of a very muscular iceberg. When an invasive animal is secretive, fertile, and nearly invisible, the question changes. How do you fight something you cannot even reliably find? So the hunt moves to the edges, roads, levees, canal banks, places where pythons betray themselves by crossing open ground. At night, hunters sweep their lights across wet asphalt and grass, looking for a pattern that does not belong. Then comes the dangerous part. A Burmese python is non-venomous, but that is a comforting word in the same way a falling piano is non-venomous. It bites, anchors with backward curving teeth, and wraps with a body made for constriction. The official guidance is to capture safely, control the head, and humanely kill the animal according to approved methods. This is not a wrestling show. The snake does not know it is in a conservation program. And if the hunter makes the wrong finishing move, the danger can literally keep snapping. Florida's rules are blunt because the stakes are blunt. Pythons caught during the challenge cannot be transported alive. They must be humanely killed, generally by first rendering the snake unconscious and then destroying the brain. Officials have warned against simply decapitating them, partly because it is not considered an immediate humane kill, and partly because the head can remain dangerous. That warning went viral because it sounds like a campfire story told by someone who owns too many knives. But it is not folklore. Reptile nervous systems do not shut down like a light switch. A snake's head can still react to touch or movement after separation from the body. So the hunter thinks it's over. The snake's head says, counterpoint. And the science is even creepier. Here is the nightmare biology. Snakes have slower metabolisms than mammals, and their tissues can keep functioning for a while with less oxygen. Reflex pathways in the nervous system can continue firing after the brain is badly damaged or separated, especially if the head is touched. The jaws close because the machinery for the bite response can still be triggered. Burmese pythons do not inject venom, but their teeth can rip skin, and any deep animal bite can bring infection risk. In simple terms, a dead python head is not alive in the way you and I mean alive, but it can still deliver one final, extremely rude handshake. That is why officials want the brain destroyed properly. But the bigger horror is what living pythons have already done to the Everglades. In parts of Everglades National Park, studies have documented catastrophic drops in sightings of mammals like raccoons, opossums, and marsh rabbits after pythons became established. One widely cited study found road surveys in the park showed raccoon observations down more than 99%, opossums down more than 98%, and bobcats down by around 87% compared with earlier counts. Marsh rabbits basically disappeared from some surveyed areas. That is not just a snake problem. That is an ecosystem getting its pockets turned inside out. Pythons eat birds, mammals, alligators, deer, and whatever else makes the poor career choice of being catchable. The Everglades evolved with predators, but not this one. And when the usual small animals vanish, the silence starts moving up the food chain. This is why the Python Challenge became more than a weird Florida headline. Yes, there are prizes. Yes, people compete for longest snake and most snakes removed. Yes, the whole thing has the energy of a county fair designed by a crocodile. But officials also use it to put more trained eyes on the landscape, raise public awareness, and remove breeding adults whenever possible. A single large female taken out before nesting can matter. During past challenges, hundreds or more participants have removed dozens to hundreds of pythons in just days, depending on the year. Still, the numbers can feel brutally small against the size of the wetlands, which leads to the twist most viral stories skip. The contest is not really a victory parade. The real goal is not to pretend a 10-day hunt can empty the Everglades. It cannot. The swamp is too big, the snakes are too hidden, and the math has teeth. The challenge works like a spotlight. It shows the public what is happening, trains people to report sightings, and feeds information into a much longer campaign. Professional removal agents, researchers, detector dogs, radio telemetry, and public reports all become pieces of the same puzzle. Scientists have even used male scout snakes with transmitters to lead them to breeding females, which is basically a reptile dating app with consequences. Suddenly, the viral warning about severed heads is not the main story. It is the doorway. Behind it is a state trying to manage an invasion it may never fully reverse. The next tools sound futuristic until you remember the enemy is a tube of muscle hiding in a salad bar the size of a county. Detector dogs can sniff out pythons in some conditions. Environmental DNA can reveal traces of python presence in water. Thermal cameras help sometimes, but snakes are cold-blooded, so they do not always glow like villains in a spy movie. Traps are hard because pythons are picky, cautious, and not interested in making this convenient for anyone. The most effective work is often slow, muddy, and human. Trained searchers driving levees at night, checking culverts, reading tracks, and grabbing danger by the neck. Every removed snake is a win, but every hidden nest asks the same brutal question. Are humans arriving before the eggs hatch? For Floridians, the python story is also a warning about the exotic pet trade and the cost of one bad release. An animal bought on impulse can become a public problem for decades. Florida has tightened rules around many high-risk species, hosted amnesty events for unwanted exotic pets, and urged residents never to release animals into the wild. Because once a species finds the right habitat, the word oops becomes very expensive. The Everglades is already fighting water pollution, development pressure, climate stress, and restoration battles that take generations. Add a giant invasive predator, and the place starts to feel like a disaster movie, where every subplot brought friends. But the people in the mud keep going, because surrender would mean letting the quiet get quieter. So yes, the viral detail is true enough to make your skin leave the group chat. A python's severed head can still bite. But the deeper story is bigger than one horrible reflex. Florida's Python Challenge is a public hunt, a conservation alarm bell, a data-gathering mission, and a reminder that nature does not reset because humans regret the last decision. The Burmese python did not conquer the Everglades in one dramatic scene. It did it in silence, clutch by clutch, meal by meal, while almost nobody was looking. That is the real thriller. Not that a dead snake can still bite, but that a living invasion can hide in plain sight. If you want more stories where today's weird headline turns into the bigger mystery underneath, subscribe.